This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles, on the Rockstar Radio Network. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money, and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by Author You and the Book Shepherd on the Rockstar Radio Network. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, it's a fabulous authoring day, and one of the questions, and I wanted to make sure that we really delved into it, did a deep dive, was all about publicity. And I know we've done a few shows on publicity, but we really have a master with us. How would you like to have someone who could be a guide who's been doing this for not 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or 20 years or 30 years? How about 40 years, who has seen the evolution of publicity with authors, who's really been involved with the revolution from really the traditional was the only way an author got a book out there and got publicity, to really seeing what the morphous has happened with the independent world that has really kind of turned a lot of the traditional publishers on their head. So with us is Kate Bandos, and she is the promotions director for Globe Pequot Press, and she was the publicity director for Pelican Publishing, a little company, and Acropolis, and also M. Evans, which I knew fairly well in New York City. And back in '88, she created KSB Promotions, which she runs with her husband, Doug. And for the past 27 years alone, they've really focused on working with independent publishers and self-published authors to really get the media coverage that they richly deserve. So Kate speaks at a lot of conferences, and she is really an expert in the areas involving just not fiction or nonfiction. She knows about parenting and gardening and health and the how-tos and cookbooks. This is one of my favorites, as well as kid books and just general books, period. So we're going to welcome Kate. Hi, Kate. How are you?
Hi, Judith. Doing well in snowy Michigan.
In snowy Michigan. Well, I have to tell you, we're in Colorado today, and we're not freezing our fritters off. It's actually a beautiful day here. So you can have the snow for but it can come next week for Christmas, I guess.
Right,
all right. So
right.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the things that go on that you do, and I'd be curious, how do you evaluate an author in a book before you agree to take them on as a client, or do you just take anybody?
No, certainly we don't take anybody. First of all, we stay to our strengths, which you mentioned, the lifestyle kind of books and children's books. So it needs to fit into those kind of categories. And I would hope that all authors who are seeking help with publicity would look for somebody who has experience in their specific area. If they've written a science fiction book, then they want a publicist who can immediately pop into their mind the ideas and the right reporters and the right bloggers and the right publications that would do science fiction books or romance or parenting, etc. And so, number one, does it fit my category? And then I read it for just, is it a good book? Does it look like it could have been produced by Random House or Simon & Schuster? Because with over 500,000 new books published every year, and I think now with ebooks the number must be way beyond that.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, it's in the millions.
That most reviewers can only cover, or any publication can only cover a small fraction of that. The trick is, will this book meet the test to go in the yes or the maybe pile, and not immediately upon glancing at it, whether glancing at it online or holding it in their hands, will it prove the test of, oh, this looks worthwhile for my listeners or viewers or readers or followers. Mm-hmm. And then their credentials really come into play. And one of the mistakes that I think a lot of authors make, particularly self-published authors, is, for instance, if they've done a back on curing back pain, they may have discovered something wonderful that worked for them, but will the authorities out there trust that this is a plan or a program that's safe for others to try? So they need then a forward and or endorsements by people whose credentials verify that this is a great plan, whether that be the head of back pain at Mayo Clinic or some university hospital person or somebody with another well-known book. But they need to build credentials before we will take it on, so that the credibility is there. So again, it goes into the yes or maybe pile and not into the media's no pile.
Going back to, actually these are all really critical to me, critical points that you bring up, that it's imperative to have a publicist really match what your book is about, because they can't be all things to everybody with any depth. That's been my experience, so I certainly echo that. And I think that one of the challenges, and I know you have seen a lot of books out there that you if you don't say it out loud, you think it internally. What was the author thinking when they put this cover on it? And,
should this ever have come off? I used to say, should it have ever come off the computer? But sometimes it doesn't need to come off the computer. But should it go beyond their four walls?
Yeah, well, I often say 10 copies may be too many, but the thing that's really critical that authors, if they want to get publicity and garnered, or if their envision is to get into any bookstore, if that's going to be their venue of where they're going to try to push sales, is that they have to be able to say that my book looks like, feels like, has the layout, etc., of a mainstream, traditionally published New York-based book. Right. If it doesn't, if they make it even to the maybe pile, they're lucky.
Right.
So,
right. The other thing that I think an awful lot of authors forget when they start going forth into the world is that publishing a book is not news. And publishing a book is only news if it's a new Harry Potter book or some other well-known author. Then the fact that a new book is coming out from this well-known person may be news. But in most cases, publication of a book is not news, not when there are so many new books being published every year. So the message has to be the content in the book and the authority that the author has, what they have to say and share. And that has to be what is promoted. The fact that it's a book is nice and that gets slid in on the side, but that can't be the focus or they're destined to failure.
So it's the content that you have to be rich in pushing that. One of the challenges I've seen, I worked on a book earlier this year that was called The Iodine Crisis, and it's actually done quite well. It's in its third printing already. And I was reviewing, she's got almost 100 reviews up on Amazon right now, and I was reading through some of them. And, certainly the high cluster is 4s and 5s, and there's always, I don't care what you are, there's always going to be some 1s and 2s. I don't care anybody how good a book is. They're going to be there. So I kind of look at them, and what I found fascinating, and it goes back to the, is this a one-trick type of pony book that you found something that worked for you, so now you're going to tell the the world about it, and you forgot to get the endorsers and the gurus that will say, God, this is good here. And that one of these people who had given a 1-star to the book really went after that. And I came back thinking, didn't you read the foreword? Didn't you read these endorsements? I mean, the key people in this area have come in and supported this and doing that. And one of the things I see, Kay, and I don't know if you have any experience with this or thoughts about this, but I'm finding more and more readers totally skip forewords and introductions, and they just kind of dive into the book to see if they're going to get there. And I've been telling our authors that if you have something that's very meaty, that introduction maybe should be chapter 1, so it doesn't get skipped over. And if you have a setup that's happening. Do you have any feelings about that?
No, that's certainly a point worth taking, and if it's by somebody else, I think it's hard to do as a first chapter, but if it's we recently saw a book that is a collection of essays, and they're from over a period of 10 years, and they're each one individually wonderful, but I found myself wondering, I wanted to know and told this author, this needs a beginning. This needs something about, here is a collection of essays that do such and such, and so that you go into the book in the right frame of mind. And I think that that's what you're saying as well.
Exactly.
That whether it's in the first chapter or in an opening segment, that you have to put the reader in the right frame of mind so that they will approach it in a reasonable way and not be super disappointed, or them thinking it was one thing and it turning out to be something else. Then you're going to get those 2-star reviews at Amazon. And it's not necessarily the book or the author's fault, but the reader who approached it without sufficient knowledge.
Yeah. Exactly. So the forewords by another person, I think that's standalone, but the introduction certainly could become chapter 1 in many cases. All right, when we come back, we are going to do dip diving into when should publicity start for a new book. With us is Kate Bandos. You're listening to Publicity. Bye-bye.
Is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Is there a book in you or another? Author U will show you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you'll find a supportive and brainstorming community that's connected and creative no matter where you live. Author U brings in national experts for its book camps and annual author extravaganza held each May. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through Author U's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. The Resource, its online book publishing news magazine, is content-heavy and it's free. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, Author U is for you. If you're a hobbyist or a casual author, it's not. Join Author U today through its website at authoru.org. Follow Author U on Twitter at Author U and on Facebook at Author U, where timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted daily. Author U, where the author goes to become seriously successful.
Sell stuff? Do you want to sell books? Lots of them? If yes, you must take credit cards, the most widely used form of payment today. The free terminal has created a special program for your guide to book publishing listeners. No contract. All equipment is free. Extremely low rates and no termination fees ever. Contact Alan Dean at alan@thefreeterminal.com or call him at 303-668-6828. The Free Terminal has handled all credit card transactions for both author you and Judith for over a year. Don't wait another day. Contact Alan at thefreeterminal.com or call 303-668-6828 and tell him you want the no-contract author you deal.
Every picture tells a story. And it's a truism that people do judge a book by its cover. Nick Sellinger and NZ Graphics have been in the business of producing superior graphic cover design and interior layout for self-published authors, independent and traditional publishers for years. He has developed a reputation for excellent work, fast turnarounds, and best of all, affordable pricing. NZ Graphics also produces ebooks and book marketing materials such as posters, sell sheets, postcards, bookmarks, business cards, logos, and more. Books designed for his clients have won multiple book awards, including Best Book Award by U.S. Book News, multiple Evie Awards from the Colorado Independent Publishers Association, Indie Book Awards, the San Francisco Book Festival Award, and Freedom Medal Award from Valley Forge. Visit www.nzgraphics.com or call 303-985-4174 for more details about making your book the success it should be. Mention that you are an FOJ, friend of Judith's, and that you heard about NZ Graphics on your guide to book publishing.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask on the Rockstar Radio Network. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, so with me today is Kate Bandos, and she is the brilliant visionary with KSB Promotions, and you can find ksbpromotions.com, and they really specialize in all the lifestyle type of books in the independent and the self-published area. But if you're going to contact her, make sure your book looks good and reads good, because it's a big bad world to compete for media and publicity out here with over 500,000 easy copies in print, and then you have all the other ebooks out there. So, Kate, I wanted to ask you that you had, when I first saw you, and you really intrigued me, you had kind of a timeline I thought was very cool. And I'd love to have you talk about your timeline. So my question that we'll start with that is, when should publicity start for a new book?
My feeling that some of the publicity brainstorming should start when the book is half written. That as you're envisioning that book, you need to be thinking about, can I add content here? Can I add some graphs or sidebars or back matter that will expand the readership and promotability of the book? So, for instance, we work on a series of books called the Lima Bear Stories. And there are now 5 children's books. They're 8.5 by 11 picture books, and each one has a message. The most recent one is Bully Bean. But at the end of each book, there is a page of activities, and then there is a page of information for teachers or parents or caregivers or others who are reading the book to the child, some questions to ask the child before they read the book, some points to talk about as the book is being read, and some topics to talk about after you've finished reading the book. Looking at the illustrations, can you tell by the cover what the book is about, etc.? Well, that back matter has been commented on and praised in almost every review that's happened from book one. And originally, the publisher was not planning for that to be a part of the book. But we feel in children's books that it's becoming more and more important for something like that to be a part of the book. So that's just one example.
Yeah, and I think that's critical. I think that that's just wise advice, which you're suggesting for all authors who, especially if there's a lesson of some sort that's coming out with a book, and you can usually find a lesson in every book versus whether, they're going to be, for a very young child, looking for certain images and graphics or whatever, to something about feelings that you could really create some wonderful, wonderful dialogue with that.
Well, and taking it to a different plane, say it's a parenting book, and it may primarily be for parents of children between 2 and 8, but perhaps with an added chapter on how to make the teen years less crazy or contentious. Perhaps a chapter or two, or even parts of the chapter. If you have an open relationship with your child and you've made them comfortable talking with you about all topics when they're 6 and when they're 8, it's going to be easier when they're 16. And suddenly you've expanded your publicity opportunities to not just parents of young children, but parents throughout their child's life, and even sometimes into the scope of appealing to grandparents who may be taking care of the children, or more suitable ways for a grandparent to address the issues about, well, in your house that may be the case, but in my house these are the rules. And so thinking again about, I always say to myself when I'm tackling a book or looking at a book, and authors should do this for themselves, is who's going to buy this book, and what else do they watch, follow, or listen to, and then how can I reach those people? So if you've written a book about how to build birdhouses, you're not going to go to Cooking Fancy magazine, because there's a total disconnect there. And likewise, if it's a book about college students, you can't go to parenting magazines, because they typically stop at some of them stop at age 6. And so you really need to understand your market and take the core market first. In our parenting example, go first to the parents of young children. But then once you've established a good base there, know that continued publicity, you can reach out to some of the parents of older children.
Well, you hit a button for me when you mentioned grandparents, for example. And I don't know how many books are even out there, but the latest data shows that 70% of grandparents offer care for at least 2 years to a grandchild. 70%. And almost 3 million of them are the primary caregiver for their grandchildren now. So, and grandparents have different hiccups called joints and God knows what.
Right.
That come along with, a young kid. And you could have I could see a whole new book just that you're a grandparent caring. Here's some insider tips. So,
right.
I mean, and I don't know what out there, Kate, but maybe who's ever listening might come up with writing it. So we start with our book halfway in. And
then
ideally,
as you've made this list of who you think is of interest, and in doing research and background checks, because if you're going to say, mine is the first lemon cookbook ever, and you click onto Amazon or do a Google or some other kind of search on lemon cookbook, and you find this is the 295th lemon cookbook, you better have done that homework so that you aren't being dismissed immediately, because if you're sending this to key cookbook food writers, they're going to definitely know if they've seen or have on their shelves other lemon cookbooks. So as you're doing your research, you should be writing down, oh, this writer seems to do a lot on this topic. Oh, this is a blog that loves healthy recipes. Oh, this is a magazine that would be perfect for this. And as you're watching television or listening to the radio or just browsing the web, you should be making note of these places. Now, you have to go, when the book is finally ready, you have to go back and make sure they still exist, because as we know, much of the media is like a revolving door, and it comes in and it goes out almost as quickly. But keeping those kind of lists will make your life much easier when you're ready to really start hardcore publicity campaigns.
Mm-hmm. All right. So as we move into a hardcore publicity campaign, and we've got 2 minutes till our next break, but as we move into a hardcore, what would be, as you start thinking, number one critical you need, then number two, and that kind of thing?
Sure. Number one is understand the deadlines of the media you're going after. A magazine like AARP works a year in advance. So, and some of the other consumer magazines work 4 to 6 months in advance. I've had people come up to me with a Christmas book at the book conventions in June, the end of May, June, and when I tell them it's too late for the Christmas issue, they think I'm crazy. But you really have to learn for each of the media you're going after what their timelines are, and set yourself up so that if you do have a Christmas book, you know that it has to be available in October, and you have to be starting your publicity in February.
And March, no late. All right. So with that thought, we'll go to number two when we come back from our break. And it's the good news is for Christmas book, there's always next Christmas too. This is Judith Briles. It's your guide.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Since 1987, Color House Graphics has set the standard for quality book production. Whether you decide to print a small quantity of books or need a large print run, depend on Color House to help you. You'll receive professional help and advice the moment you reach one of our representatives. If you mention hearing about us on your guide to book publishing, Judith Briles, we will provide you a discount on the first order you place. To speak with a project manager, call us toll-free at 800-454-1916 or visit us at www.colorhousegraphics.com.
When Ned Thompson and Harry Shore started Thompson Shore in 1972, they believed employees with great character would make up the best company. They were right. They hired people who were not only experts in bookmaking, but who were obsessed with quality and delivering exceptional customer service. Almost 40 years later, Thompson Shore remains a 100% employee-owned company. Ned and Harry knew that successful customer projects are a direct result of empowered employees. We specialize in all books for large and small publishers. Creating beautiful and well-made books, we're dedicated to pleasing our customers by making the experience a good one from start to finish. The personal touch we have with our customers allows us to be innovative in solving their most difficult challenges. Our platform also ensures that we can remain flexible to meet our customers' unique needs and expectations. Our marketing kit can create buzz for your title, enhancing the promotion of your book during infancy. When you need to test the market to gauge your future sales, we can provide digitally printed books that will transition seamlessly into a larger offset run. From ebook to hard copy to delivery, our skillful customer service teams are at the ready to answer your most pressing question. At Thompson Shore, we know that making the highest quality books requires more than just best technologies. It requires superior customer service, professionalism to the trade, and commitment to environmental and social values. With these standards of excellence in place, you can be sure that we will always help you put your best book forward.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask on the Rockstar Radio Network. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, on Author You, Your Guide to Book Publishing, we have Kate Bandos, who is a expert of not 1, 2, 3, but actually 4 decades in creating promotions, publicity, and she specializes with independent publishers, authors, and she has her real skill set is in the lifestyle books, children's books, cookbooks, etc. And we're talking about we jumped into the timeline, and I wanted to let all our listeners know if you would like to get a hold of the timeline, Kate offers it for free on her website, and that site is K as in kangaroo, SB, Kangaroo Sam Boy, KSB Promotions.com, and you just go in there and you'll see the timeline off the homepage and click on that and take it and run. We're talking about some...
Actually, you need to go to Publicity, Tips, and Advice, and then there are 20 different PDFs that can be downloaded on various aspects of publicity, and the timeline is one of those. So
that's critical.
Lots of things.
Yeah, so go over there and visit the website and go into the tab of Publicity, Tips, and Advice. We were talking about hardcore, and the first thing that Kate said was that you've got to really understand and be tuned into the real deadlines, especially with magazines, because some are anywhere from 4 months out to a whole year out where they're setting things up. Radio and TV is a much, much shorter rope when you're working on things. And Kate, anything you want to add on about the media of TV and radio?
Well, some of the TV work in advance. Again, make sure that you know that in most cases now, with being able to view things on your tablet or iPad or computer or whatever, if it's not a national show, you should be able to view it. And I would have authors contact me and say, I want to be on Oprah. Well, Oprah did a whole hour on a topic, where the Today Show or Good Morning America, you're lucky to get 3 to 5 minutes. And so you have to know whether your topic and your book and some of the key elements of it, what does it best fit? What format does it best fit? Can you get across the key information in 3 to 5 minutes, or does it really take you an hour to go through everything so that someone understands your method and says, oh, I need to get hold of this book and read more about it? So understanding the media you're going to, and for instance, a lot of people send books to any number of places, whether it be print or radio, TV, or online, and say, this is a review copy, I want a review of my book. Well, there are very few places that truly review a book anymore. So if you ask them to review a book and they go, we don't do book reviews, toss, the book goes into the pile, into the tub at the front of the office where whoever wants a free book can take it home, or if they do donations to hospitals or senior centers or jails or whatever, that book is off and gone. So really understand what they're looking for, because I think that the thing that all authors need to know, no matter what the topic is, if you approach the media of, oh, I've got this great show for you, I've got this great story for you, this is perfect, this is how I can help you, you're going to get a lot more publicity and coverage than if you go, please review my book, I need it to sell. That the old adage of you get more bees with honey than vinegar, or a similar saying, is really true. That when you're offering help, when these shows have to find guests and topics and articles, and you offer a guest blog so that somebody can take the day off and doesn't have to come up with another idea, they're going to truly be appreciative and come back to you. So know what they're going to do with the information and make sure you present it in the proper way. So, are you presenting an interview? Are you presenting a top 10 list? Are you presenting a quiz? Are you presenting an article? Know what you're going to offer. And this isn't a one-time deal. For instance, if you have a parenting book, using that as an example again, your first approach may be that this is a new overall concept in parenting where you sit down and have meetings, or anyway, whatever your overall plan is. That may be your first approach to the media. But then you may later go back to the media on how do you deal when your kid throws a tantrum in the middle of a restaurant or the grocery store. And then you may do another time going out to the media about how to handle the homework wars and how do you handle chores and allowance. So there are, similarly with a cookbook, you could have holiday recipes that would have gone out a few months ago, or right now for a blog that might post it today on ways to make Christmas dinner or a holiday open house easy. But you can also do the winter soups and the spring salads and the each season or each type of occasion may lend itself to another pitch, which can give your book life for a long, long time.
Sure, and what's critical is they have to learn how to pitch it and use those so you have those grabbers to bring them in, and that's always been the essential. And I've always felt, that you could, for the bloggers, you could be pitching, what to do over New Year's, or you could do a non-holiday activity for parenting for families that doesn't involve all the glitter of the holiday, just a gathering of your family members. And just a shared activity and take a break.
Right, and the more personal you can be, if you can say, I really loved your blog about how you handle gifts for extended family, and on a similar note, I would like to suggest this or that. It shows the person you've done your homework, you've done your research. When I started in publicity, it was a matter of getting to know a person. Now you can go online and read that a particular radio host loves chocolate or has a dog that they can't seem to discipline, or you can learn so much about a person or the media, whatever it is, and if you do the homework and then you approach them from the basis that I know who you are and what you like, and so let me offer this suggestion, you're going to get a lot farther than if you pitch something that, if they're conservative and you're reform, and things may not swing the same way if you pitch something that's anti this and they're for it, unless they want to get into a good debate. They may blow you off very quickly.
Which can happen. Let me ask you this. We're talking about new books. What if I have an oldie? What if I have one that maybe be a little tired? What is it possibility to get some PR opportunities out of that?
Absolutely. We've got 2 books that I'll use as examples that are continuing to get publicity. One is a book called Start Talking, which is about mother-daughter communication. And it has various scenarios and ways to keep that communication open. And there are sections for the mother and sections for the daughter, et cetera. Well, Mary Jo Rapini is just a bubbly, forthright, she can talk on anything parenting and does. And the book was actually published, I want to say, 8 or 9 years ago. And we have been doing monthly article blasts. And every month, her articles appear on at least a dozen blogs or web magazines, or the topic may get her an interview on a radio station or a regional parenting magazine, or 2 or 3 may pick up that article to use. Or she's now doing a regular parenting Q&A in her local Houston family magazine. She's now a regular on a radio station in Houston. She's now a regular on a TV show in Houston. CNN is now after her. Reporters call all the time because she can talk about twerking now and making your child comfortable when these horrors are happening at school and they may be afraid to go to school or whatever. So if you keep up on the news, and there is a way that you can...
Kate, hold that one, because we're going to go right into our final break, because this is an important topic that tie into what's going on, old or new. It can make it very successful.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Do you sell stuff? Do you want to sell books? Lots of them? If yes, you must take credit cards, the most widely used form of payment today. The Free Terminal has created a special program for your guide to book publishing listeners. No contract. All equipment is free. Extremely low rates and no termination fees ever. Contact Alan Dean at alan@thefreeterminal.com or call him at 303-668-6828. The Free Terminal has handled all credit card transactions for both Author You and Judith for over a year. Don't wait another day. Contact Alan at thefreeterminal.com or call 303-668-6828 and tell him you want the no-contract Author You deal.
The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and a guide to partner with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand, and is a financial success, a bestseller. It's your choice. You choose. You need the book shepherd. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You don't need problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and the chaos. At times, she's had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher or by a publishing service provider or sometimes even the author themselves. Judith Briles is the book shepherd if you want to create a book with no regrets. Give her a call today, 303-885-2207. That's 303-885-2207, or email her at judith@briles.com. By the way, Briles is spelled B-R-I-L-E-S. Follow Judith on Twitter at MyBookShepherd and on Facebook at The Book Shepherd.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask on the Rockstar Radio Network. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, today we're talking about publicity and what to do with the old and the new. And right now we're talking about the old. And Kate Bandos, my expert guest, is talking about how she's working with actually a book right now that is 8-9 years old, and the positioning that the author's getting, besides across-the-board blogs and CNN and a regular on radio shows, etc., is actually creating nice book sales as well as speaking fees. And what I want all of you to understand is that as you start on the journey of authoring with your first book, because I know books breed more books, is that it's a long run. It's if you're trying to do the instant hit, you're making a really sad mistake, because sometimes things take a while to build the wave. Would you agree, Kate?
Absolutely. You've got it exactly right. The patience is so hard, even when your book is scheduled for publication and you're doing some of this publicity work 6 months in advance, and it doesn't come out for 6 or 8 months. And you've got books in your garage that you really want to sell, and yet you're doing all of these things early. It's very hard to be patient, but it will pay off if you put yourself out there.
And that's what's critical. You got to put yourself off. It's a long-term game plan, and which gives you a lot of chance to keep coming back.
And something else that I've learned that Mary Jo is a perfect example of, when she follows up on HARO queries, help a reporter out, which I imagine you've talked about or people can look up. When she answers a query from a journalist, She makes herself totally available, and sometimes the journalists are nice enough to come back and say, no, this isn't quite right. Then Mary Jo always responds, well, you know, I always make myself available, and so you're doing such a good thing sharing this information with people. And she is so genuine and so memorable that indeed the reporters and the media come back to her when this week we had an instance where some article didn't happen, and the editor called and said, "Can Mary Jo quick do a 400-word piece on?" And Mary Jo did it. And so you know that editor is forever grateful and will approach Mary Jo again.
Exactly, and that's what endears you to them, and you become a really in their star list that they come back to you on.
Right.
Kate, a couple other things before we run totally out of time. Do you think an author can handle their own publicity?
Some authors do a very good job of handling their own publicity, and some media, particularly the smaller mommy bloggers and some of the radio shows, love to hear from the author because they almost do a pre-interview if they happen to be talking or even emailing back and forth or texting. They get a chance to get a feel for each other and can do that. But what I typically say is that there are many media will not be honest with an author. If they don't like the position the author takes, they're much more likely to email me and say, well, it's an interesting book, but my take on global warming is really opposite, and so I'm not going to do anything with this book.
Okay.
Or I just covered this topic and we probably won't address it again for a year. And they're much more likely to be honest with me. The other thing about doing your own publicity, and actually one of the things that they can find on my website is you should do your own publicity if, and you should hire a publicist if, which people find a fun quiz to take. But if an author is trying to do it all, and they only have 18 hours in a day to be working on the book, they should be going after sales. And it's much easier to job out the publicity and focus on their sales and get the money in hand than it is necessarily for them to be doing the publicity. They should be out speaking. They should be out doing other things to find outlets for sales and speaking engagements and books clubs to be a part of and other kind of things where publicity. I know plenty of media who will open the email from me, but if it comes from Joe at joepublicity.com, is going to say, and that'll go into their spam filter, and they may never get to that email.
And I've seen that happen for a lot of people. And the authors, you need to really get over the fact that you want to keep writing. Your job, when that book is out, is to support it. And
certainly the authors are the best at keeping track of current news, of how they fit into the news, and coming up with ideas, and they can certainly be a part of the publicity with, like I talked about, emailing somebody and saying that interview you did, or that op-ed piece you did, or that story you did, or that blog you wrote was right on, and I cover how people can better handle that in my book, and how can we work together. Those kind of personal relationships are wonderful for an author to develop, so they are the go-to person when this topic comes up again. But for the majority of the publicity, the strong press release, the picking of the media, the follow-up, which is so critical. And I hear many clients say initially they don't want me, that they can do their own follow-up. And then I talk to them 3 months later, have you done your follow-up, when they're complaining about not having much coverage? And they go, no, I got all bogged down on shipping and billing and speaking. And if you don't do that follow-up, everybody who gets a book, every media who you send a book to needs to be followed up. And it's amazing how often that tickler can get the book from the bottom of the pile to the top, and the coverage can happen then, where it might have just disappeared into that stack of books that gets bigger every day.
Exactly. So that leads me into our last question, because you've opened it up, because that's called a mistake, that you don't follow up because you're really kissing off your postage as well as your book costs when you send out these books then. And so we have about 2 minutes here. What are the common mistakes that you see year after year after year, Kate, that authors make?
Well, again, I think that we can go back to the beginning of our discussion today, not starting soon enough, not building that position, or the book itself not being strong enough, the not looking at all the different market areas that you can go after, approaching inappropriate media, and it's better to do fewer but more targeted things than to throw it out to the world, and then that follow-up. And not stopping when your book is a year old, but keeping going and keeping going. Another book that's kept going is a book called Smart Packing for Today's Traveler. And she, again, is now called upon by the media, because if the airline changes its rules about luggage, about carry-ons, about whatever, they call Susan or they email her because they know she's the packing expert. And so she makes sure that she doesn't become obsolete. And so the author has to keep thinking of ways to make their information new, even if it's not a part of their book, it's part of their platform.
And that's what's critical, and that's going to be our last word. With us is Kate Bandos. She is with KSB Promotions.com. Lots of fabulous tips on her website. Just go to the homepage and click on her tips and publicity, and you will download a lot of reports for free. Kate, thank you so much for being with us today. Lots of good information. We'll have to have you back.
Great. It's been a pleasure, and I hope everybody starts spreading the word.
Absolutely. All righty. So as we come up to this week, next week will be the Christmas holidays. We'll be doing the day after Christmas. We'll be looking at foreign rights and sales. You don't want to miss this show. This is Judith Briles. Take care and happy authoring.
A part of your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles.